Advanced Speaking and Pronunciation. Video 4, Intonation. Part 1. Review. Segmentals and suprasegmentals. In video 1 of this series, we began discussing how English pronunciation is built on a series of levels, beginning with the foundational idea of segmentals. Segmentals represent the smallest units of sound that make sense in a language. For English, the 44 to 47 consonant and vowel sounds are those segmental ideas. Suprasegmentals are a prosodic feature of language and do not operate with any specific segmental idea, but rather work together with segments to convey additional information. If you recall, prosody is the study of rhythm, stress, and intonation. It's best to think of suprasegmentals as operating on a different level from segmentals. Let's go back to the example we used in video 1, but looking at it in a different way.
This diagram will help explain how English pronunciation operates on different levels of information functioning at the same time. First, let's start with the foundation of the pyramid, segmentals. The sounds of a word represent the most basic idea, so we will place this information at the base of the pyramid.
So, looking at the segmental level, let's review the individual sounds of the word banana. And again, we are using the International Phonetic Alphabet to represent this. B, n, a, n, Now let's move on to the suprasegmental levels. Again, as we learned in video 1, suprasegmentals are those ideas that are above the segmental level. In video 2, we learned that stress is one example of a suprasegmental idea. So as we will demonstrate first at the word level, we then combine the sounds to represent syllables. And from there, we remember that syllables, generally there is one stressed syllable in a word. And that syllables are based on the number of vowel sounds we have. So in this case, we have 3 vowel sounds, so we have 3 syllables. And the middle syllable, as we discussed, was the stressed syllable, because it is the one that is the loudest and the clearest to hear. Banana. Now you will recognize here at the top of our pyramid another suprasegmental idea. This is what we began discussing in video 3, and basically this is what happens at the sentence level. Now recall that even though words will have a stressed syllable, only the most important words will receive sentence stress. We call these content words. Since banana is a noun, it will receive sentence stress as well. So let's use the sample sentence, I love bananas, to represent sentence stress. And we will place that sentence now here at the top of the pyramid. Recall that love and bananas will receive sentence stress because both have meaning by themselves. I love bananas. So in today's video, we are going to learn about another prosodic feature called intonation. Intonation is suprasegmental in nature because, again, it doesn't represent any particular segment, but instead works with segments and other suprasegmentals to convey additional information. Part 2. What is pitch? Pitch is how high or low one's voice becomes to indicate a particular intention, feeling or emotion, or even attitude about a certain idea. For example, in the following question, are you from Mexico? Notice how the voice will rise in pitch on the word Mexico. This is because yes or no questions require rising pitch. In other words, pitch that goes up. and is thus indicated as its intention with the question mark at the end. While stress involves how long or short the particular syllable and word will be in comparison to other unstressed ideas, again either syllables or other words, pitch will involve how high or how low the voice will sound. In video 3, we learned that sentence stress will emphasize the important words in the sentence. We called these content words. However, what you're going to learn today is that not every content word is of the same level of importance. Pitch helps to identify the one word, or sometimes more, that will be the most important idea of the entire sentence. Focus word. The one word that will receive the highest pitch is called the focus word. The focus word is generally the last content word of a sentence, or sometimes even a rhythmic unit in English. This is because English typically places the most important information towards the end of a sentence or question. Let's look at some examples. First, let's start with the stressed content words. We will underline those words. Listen and repeat. My name is John. I am from Kentucky. Are you from the United States? I'm really hungry. Now let's try with a focus word. Listen and repeat. My name is John. I am from Kentucky. Are you from the United States? I'm really hungry. Part 3. What is intonation? Intonation is a pattern of pitch changes to help distinguish among the different kinds of sentences and questions used in language. Intonation is what helps add a particular musical or melodic quality to English. Intonation and focus words. The focus word will receive the most attention in a sentence and/or question, and it is usually located at the end. However, as demonstrated earlier, the focus word doesn't just receive more emphasis, such as a change in volume or simply higher pitch. It will actually be the point where the true intention of the sentence or question will be displayed. Remember now, intonation is not just high or low pitch, but a pattern of pitch changes. These changes will occur on the focus word or words, depending on the length of the sentence. Let's look at the different intonational patterns used in English and how the focus word will play a part in those changes. Our first intonational pattern is referred to as rising and deep falling intonation. We see this intonational pattern with most typical sentences in English. Notice how the pitch will rise and then deeply fall at the end of the content word. Recall that the focus word is the last content word of the sentence. Let's try these examples. My name is John. I'm really hungry. I don't know what day it is. And again, notice day is the final content word, so this is the focus word of the sentence. We also have a rising and slight falling intonation when we have information questions. These are the questions that we often call WH questions. Notice that the intonation will rise, but perhaps not fall as much, oftentimes because there may be another word that follows, but also because it's a question, and we want to distinguish it slightly from the normal sentence pattern. Let's try them. What are you talking about? When does the movie start? Who wants to go get some ice cream? Remember, ice is the compound word, and that the word ice will receive the focus because it's the stressed word of the two-part idea. So remember that information questions will use a rising action on the content word, but the following will not always be as deep as with normal sentences. Then we have the rising intonation pattern. We see these patterns the most with yes or no questions and tag questions. Again, notice how the intonation will rise but not fall at the end. Are you from Mexico? You're coming to the party, aren't you? And notice you might have a slight rise in intonation and falling here on the word party, since this is technically the end of the sentence. The tag is where you will actually rise. Would Patty like to come over for dinner? Finally, we have an intonational pattern referred to as hesitation intonation. Hesitation intonation, sometimes referred to also as hesitation curve, usually occurs before a mid-sentence comma or conjunction. This type of intonational pattern indicates to the listener that more information is coming, so just continue listening. Also, notice how the rising and falling intonation on the focus word will not sound as strong as in the shorter sentences. This is because the longer the sentence, especially with many rhythmic units, the harder it becomes to keep the same energy for the end of the sentence. Now again, we've gone through and stressed the particular words we need to stress, but now I've used this particular pattern to indicate the hesitation. Let's try them. When the party ended, the host asked the guests to help clean up. She really wants to come over, but she doesn't have time today. George is trying to finish his assignment. However, he can't find the solution to the last problem. So notice here on the conjunction, however, or the the conjunctive adverb, the word however will receive the hesitation. And this is because of the semicolon we see here. Now let's try some examples. Can you identify which intonational pattern will be used? Here are our examples. Take a moment and look at them on the screen. First, let's identify which words we are going to stress. Now let's identify the focus word and intonational pattern. So let's look at the first example. What type of intonational pattern do you think we're going to use? We're going to use the rising or slight falling intonation. Let's try it. Where are you going? Okay, let's look at the second example. What type of intonation are we using here? If you said hesitation, you're correct. Mostly because this is a longer sentence, and we recognize that there's a comma indicated here, that we're going to put a hesitation on the word before it. Of course, don't forget we're still going to have a rising and perhaps slightly falling intonation at the end. Let's try this one. Paul and Vera can't go with us to the movies tonight, yet they still want to have dinner. Let's try the third example. What kind of intonation are we going to use here? That's correct, rising intonation. Mostly because this is a tag question. Let's say it. He's going to buy a new car, isn't he? So you can notice we're going to rise there on the word he. All right, and the final example. What kind of intonation will we use here? Again, this is a normal sentence, so we'll use the rising and deep falling intonation. Let's try it. She's checking out a book from the library. Hopefully you got all of these correct. So again, looking back at our pronunciation pyramid, starting with the segmental level, we built up in video 2 to the word level. Video 3 addressed sentence stress, and now we are going to add the focus word and the intonational pattern. So in this case, we have that rising and deep falling intonation. I love bananas. Part 4, Review. Segmentals are the individual sounds of a language. In English, those sounds are consonants and vowels. Suprasegmentals are those ideas that work above the individual sounds to express additional information, including stress, both word stress and sentence stress, and intonation. As we learned today, intonation is a pattern of changes in pitch to help indicate the intention of the utterance. For example, is it a sentence or a question? Pitch involves how high or low the voice will sound on any particular word, usually on the focus word. Recall that the focus word is the most important word in the sentence, which is generally the last content word in the sentence, though not always, as we will see in a future video. The intonational change will occur on the focus word. Because English is a rhythmic language, intonation occurs in fairly predictable patterns. Rising or deep falling intonational patterns usually indicate typical sentences. Rising and slight falling intonational patterns usually indicate WH questions or information questions. Rising intonational patterns usually indicate yes or no questions and tag questions. And finally, hesitation intonational patterns usually occur in longer sentences, often the word before the comma or conjunction. The sentence will still end with rising falling action, though perhaps not as strong. In our next video, we will look at what happens to those words in the sentence that receive neither stress or intonational change, the unstressed words, as well as identify these extreme examples of unstress called reductions. Once again, we want to remind you that we have several educational websites designed to help you in improving your English abilities, especially in speaking and pronunciation and vocabulary development. And of course, don't forget dictionary.com is a great resource for pronunciation and, of course, for finding the meanings of words. We'll see you next time for video 5, Unstressed Words and Reductions.